He was called the Great Stone Face, the man who never smiled and never fell without meaning to. Buster Keaton built some of the most daring comedies ever committed to film, and he did it with a body that had been trained in pain. To understand the stillness of that face, you have to go back to the very beginning, before Hollywood, before the camera ever found him. He was born Joseph Frank Keaton in 1895 into a family of traveling vaudeville performers. The legend goes that the toddler tumbled down a flight of stairs and walked away unharmed, earning the nickname Buster. It was a fitting name for a boy who would spend a lifetime absorbing falls the world thought should have killed him. By the age of 3, Buster was part of the family act. His father, Joe Keaton, would hurl the small boy across the stage, into scenery, and into the orchestra pit. It was billed as comedy, the human mop, and audiences roared. Behind the laughter was a child learning to make his body weightless and his face blank, so the crowd would see the joke instead of the terror. The blankness became a discipline. Buster discovered that when he reacted, the audience laughed less. When he stayed impassive, they laughed more. So he trained his features into that famous unmoving mask. What looked like calm was armor, forged in a childhood where showing fear only invited more violence. There was one place, though, where the act stopped. Each summer the vaudeville circuit went dark, and the Keatons traveled north to Muskegon, Michigan, to a lakeside gathering of performers known as the Actors' Colony at Bluffton. Here, the stone face could finally soften. The colony was a ramshackle paradise of cottages along Muskegon Lake, filled with acrobats, comedians, and musicians escaping the road. For Buster, it was the closest thing to a real home he would ever know. He fished, he tinkered with machines, he pulled elaborate pranks on the neighbors, and he was, for a few precious months, simply a boy. In Muskegon, he built and rebuilt gadgets, studied how things worked and how they broke, and staged small stunts for his own amusement. The mechanical ingenuity that would later fill his films, the collapsing houses, the runaway trains, the impossible chases, was born on those quiet summer afternoons by the water. When he grew into a young man, film called. Buster stepped in front of a movie camera for the first time in 1917, and something clicked. The medium was made for a man who thought in motion, who understood distance and timing and the geometry of a gag better than anyone alive. Through the 1920s, he entered his golden age. In films like Sherlock Jr., Steamboat Bill Jr., and The General, he directed and performed feats of astonishing courage. He let a house facade fall around him, standing so an open window passed cleanly over his body. One wrong step meant death, and he never blinked. The General, released in 1927, was his masterpiece, a Civil War chase epic of real locomotives and enormous practical stunts. Critics of the day underestimated it, but time would crown it one of the greatest films ever made. In it, the stone face reached its fullest expression, grief, love, and heroism, all conveyed without a single smile. Then the ground shifted beneath him. He signed with a major studio, MGM, and lost the creative control that had made him great. Committees now dictated his gags. The independence he had built since those inventive Muskegon summers was stripped away, and the films grew hollow. Sound arrived, and the era of silent comedy ended almost overnight. Keaton's carefully built visual world seemed suddenly old-fashioned. As his career collapsed, so did his marriage and his health. He drank heavily, disappeared into depression, and for a time was very nearly forgotten by the industry he had helped create. The lost years were bleak. He worked as an anonymous gag writer, patching up other comedians' films for modest pay. The man who had commanded the screen now labored in its shadows, but even in decline, the craftsman in him never stopped solving problems, the same instinct honed on a Michigan dock decades before. Slowly, the tide turned. In the 1950s, a new generation rediscovered his silent films and recognized their genius. Retrospectives filled theaters. Critics hailed him as a master. Keaton, older now and steadier, found himself embraced at last, appearing on television, in features, and even on the stage he had once feared. He lived to see his own resurrection. Honored with a Special Academy Award and celebrated across the world, Buster Keaton finally received the recognition that had eluded him for so long. He died in 1966, having outlasted obscurity to become a legend. The stunts still astonish. The face still holds its secrets, but beneath the marvel of his comedy lies the story of a boy thrown into the spotlight before he could walk away from it, who found peace only in the summers by a northern lake. Muskegon was never on the map of his fame, yet it was, perhaps, the only place he was ever truly home.